Welcome to episode 70 of the Backlot 605 podcast. I keep thinking it's episode 69 because I'm still a 13-year-old child, and I'm your host. I'm Casey Kelderman.
I'm Brian Mensing, and yes, you are.
Yes, it only took us 3 tries to get to this opening because I forgot what number we were on.
It took you 3 tries. I'm just over here laughing at you.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all good. We got it. We're on number 70. Big number here. I don't know what's so important about 70. It's no 69, that's for sure. Thank you all for tuning in to the premier South Dakota movie podcast, as we like to call it.
Well, we can call ourselves that because, well, we can.
We can, and we did. And if you want to fight about it, we'll fight about it. I mean, we will.
No, I want to see you. Yeah, you're like, nope. I'm just gonna go.
No, I'm sorry, we're not.
I'm just going to hide in my corner.
I'm sorry. Thank you all for tuning in. This week's episode inspired by the release of this weekend's. I forgot. What's the name of the movie again? The Vin Diesel movie, Bloodshot.
Bloodshot.
I already forgot the name.
Well, you're just so hung up on the whole, like, they had to move Bond, and we can't have Bond coming out so soon. There's
been a lot of shuffling of movies around here in the last week or so because of the coronavirus. I blame Vin Diesel and Coronas for this.
Oh, you blame Fast and the Furious now.
Yes, I blame Coronas for this. The beer.
No.
Yeah. Do you believe there are people out there that believe the coronavirus has to deal with the beer Corona?
Yeah, because some people are just not quite,
They're not bright?
I don't know.
These are the same people buying all the face masks for all this Corona stuff?
And it's like, hey, yeah,
Just wash your hands. Wash your hands.
This is way before this. Heck, I just even learned here the other day that, on the side of the Lysol can, it says coronavirus, so it means it's probably been there.
It's been around. It's been around. Just wash your hands, people. That is today's motto. That is the lesson of the day. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Yes. So this week, inspired by Bloodshot, let's get back to whatever the hell we were talking about. We're going to be talking about comic book movies that are not from DC or Marvel, because Bloodshot is based off a variant comic.
Valiant?
Valiant? Is it Valiant? I don't read comic books. I just watch them on the screen. I think it's Valiant. You might be right. It's one of the other. I'll let you look it up.
Yes,
but yeah,
Valiant.
That is this week's topic: non-DC Marvel comic book movies. So
if we would have even got one of those Wednesday guys here, we would look less.
Yeah, I wasn't going to call them out, but yeah, since you mentioned it, we are going to call them out. The boys at Wednesday Comics. None of them can make it. All 3 of you guys. What is going on? I think they just don't like us.
They have lives.
It's not like that. They're all married and are busy.
Exactly.
Nothing like that.
Yeah, no, jobs and all.
Yeah, I mean, who needs that when you can have a podcast? They should have all quit their jobs just to join us.
Oh yeah, that's what
they all should have done that. All together, quit their jobs for 1 week just to join us.
We would have sounded a lot more intellectual.
Intellectual on the comic book side, yes. The movie side, I think we got that covered. That's what we do every week.
Yeah, we're okay there.
We know movies. We know moving pictures. But yeah, let's jump into what we kick it off. What we kick it off with every week. That is the box office. Let's move onward to that. Ha.
Oh,
number one this week.
Really?
Number 1 this week is Onward. $39.1 million for Pixar and Disney. Yes, of course. I think you mentioned this before we started recording, Brian. That this number would be higher. Probably without the Corona scare going on.
Yes, people don't want to go out in public. They don't want to, and then you figure there's different markets that's not even playing in right now because they're all shut down. Especially if you're talking the Chinese market, all that fun stuff. Because from what I've been reading, unfortunately for opening weekends, it's one of the worst for Pixar. And I went to go see this movie, and it's not for the sake of the movie that it is not doing so on the box office. I think it has everything to do with people and the whole coronavirus.
Yeah, people scared to go out in public type of thing. Yeah, I think that because most Pixar movies, they're looking upwards of 50.
Oh,
this is at 39 here. Yeah, I don't know. You want to pull up the worldwide for this? I'm curious as to what that is right now. But number 2 this week, though, is The Invisible Man, $15.1 million, a 46% drop from the previous week, dropping down to that number 2 spot. Still doing pretty well. $15 million is a pretty good second weekend out for this movie.
Approximately 67.
for worldwide for
Yeah.
Onward.
Yeah, Onward has like a 28 approximate 28
For
million
overseas. That's
for
not,
overseas.
That's not good.
That tells me, that there is a whole slew of the market that is not even open up because, I'm looking at this here. Obviously, China's not even on here yet. So
Yeah, cinemas are closed in China right now.
yeah,
So,
the biggest opening looks like was France for the European market.
so what? Invisible Man, number 2 here, $15 million. That's a pretty good spot for it. This movie only cost, I think it was roughly 10 when we looked it up last week.
It was little.
Yeah, so it's a total domestic gross, $52 million, doing pretty well still here in the box office. Number 3 is the Ben Affleck-led film The Way Back, $8.1 million. In a little over 2,500 theaters. This movie's getting really, really good reviews.
That's what I've been hearing, and plus, if I remember correctly, it wasn't like a huge overall budget either. So
I'm sure it's paying Ben Affleck. it's probably what the budget is. I mean, at least half of it is probably to Ben. I've been hearing really good reviews for this, and people are saying this isn't your typical high school coach drama film.
no, not at all.
And I mean, people are talking about how Ben is taking a lot from his real life struggles with being a former alcoholic.
Yep.
And putting it in this movie. So I won't rush out to the theater to watch this, but this is definitely going to be one of those Friday night at home watches.
This seemed like one of those ones where I saw and I immediately was thinking that it was
those typical high school.
You
take your high school basketball team to these movies.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was kind of on the fence of what to expect out of it, and then all of a sudden you start hearing about the response to it. I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't quite what you'd expect. So, it might be something that maybe if it's a down week or something that's not coming out or whatnot, it's still in the theater, maybe I would consider going to go see it or whatever. But
or cheap seats, maybe.
Yeah. But sports movies aren't usually the ones that I go run into the theater for. So it's nothing against the movie. It's just I'm not the demographic.
Yeah, and they definitely market it as this is a sports movie. Ben Affleck's the coach dealing with some personal issues while rallying this team around. So that's kind of how it was marketed. And to me, I'm like, that's not a movie that would draw me to a theater.
No,
but from hearing that it's more of a dramatic character piece with Ben Affleck in it, I think that's a little more interesting.
Well, and to think too, it's also rated R, and this is the kind of movie that they could have easily dialed it back just so they can get the PG-13 to get butts in the seats when they're like, nope, we know exactly what we need, we know exactly what we want, we're not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I like that they're taking a bit of a risk with it.
Yes.
Because, they could have gone the PG-13 high school drama.
Yes.
For this. So,
what I agree.
All right, number 4, Sonic the Hedgehog, $7.7 million. Total domestic gross, $140.5 million. I think the big surprise so far this year, Sonic the Hedgehog, for sure.
Oh, I think even Paramount's probably like, this might be doing a little better than we thought.
Yes.
We needed the win.
I've been hearing good things, both, of course, with the box office for this, and I think critically it's been getting very good reviews, as we've said in previous weeks.
It's made me
it makes me want to watch.
Kind of want to go see it.
Yeah. I think it...
I'm eating my words.
Much like The Way Back.
I'm eating my words.
Yeah, I think both of us said that when we first started talking about this movie. We're like, it's a dumpster fire, it'll bomb, be out of the top 5 the second week out, and here it is. It's 4th week in, and it's still making
4.
Making $7 million, doing pretty good for itself. Number 5, The Call of the Wild, $6.7 million, bringing its total domestic gross $57.2 million.
I like how the fact that it took a 49% dip, yet it still added 49 theaters.
Yeah.
So take a percent off for every theater added.
Again, I'm wondering how it's sticking around this much. With it being its 3rd week out. One of it being there's not much else in theaters right now.
I think it's that.
I think there's two family films that you could go watch that I think would have taken more aback from Call of the Wild.
What, you're talking Sonic and Onward?
Yeah.
I think it's because this is the family film that your grandparents are going to go see because they want to go to the theater, and they're not going to go watch a Pixar movie. They're not going to go watch Sonic.
Let's go watch Harrison Ford talk to a dog.
That's exactly what it is.
And it's based on a popular book.
Yeah. I think that has everything to do with it. That is the demographic that is still going to go see that movie.
Yeah. Every middle schooler read the book, so I think it's at least in the public conscious, the name.
I didn't know this was a book. I've never read it.
Yeah. Middle school. I don't remember anything about it.
I think middle school, I'm reading like The Outsiders and stuff.
Well, that too. So that is the box office for the week. Rounding it off again. Number 1, Onward. 2, The Invisible Man. 3, The Way Back. Number 4, Sonic the Hedgehog. And number 5, The Call of the Wild.
Snooze.
Let's move on to the news then for this week. We got to start off with a little bit of sad news here at the top, though.
Yes.
Yes, that is that legendary actor Max von Sydow has passed away the day that we're recording this, Monday the 9th, at the age of 90.
It's one of those things where it's like you feel sad because you got somebody who's a legend and everything like that has since passed away and whatnot. But you also look at you're like 90 years, and he spent over half of that pretty much
working in the business.
So he definitely lived a full life in the industry,
and it gave us very, very memorable performances.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my favorite is from The Exorcist. But yeah, you brought up one today in our group chat that I had not realized either, that he was the voice of Vigo in Ghostbusters 2. I just had assumed it was the actor that's in the painting.
And exactly, and so what it was, it wasn't the actor, and I was looking stuff up because the article I had pulled up when I was talking about like in terms of like him in Star Wars, stuff like that. So I was like, I'm just gonna go quick look, and I was like, it referenced Ghostbusters. I was like, hold on, and I go down, and he's the voice of Vigo the Carpathian, and
very memorable voice performance that I just never realized was Max von Sydow.
I just assumed like you. And again, I've been watching that movie since I was a kid. I just assumed it was the guy in the whoever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more you know.
The more you know. Do.
All right. So let's move on to the rest of the news for this past week. We got more Batman news. We talked about it last couple weeks. The first look at the Batmobile has been revealed. The new muscle car looking Batmobile.
I immediately looked at this and I was like, this is a Dominic Toretto special. I mean, it straight up looks like that beast of a vehicle from Furious 7. It just screams, and especially if this is like a year one, like a younger Bruce Wayne before he's kind of built and redesigned and recreated the Batmobile, it would make sense that it's going to look more like an actual like muscle car or something to that effect, because if they're going to make it look like a regular car that's been modified, they're going to go straight up American muscle. They're not going to go like
the Tumbler.
Well, no. I'm talking more like like a Nissan or like a something like that. They're gonna like, no, we want American muscle.
Yeah, I would love to see him in a smart car. Batman cruising around in a smart car. He's eco-friendly Batman.
Only if we get a follow-up of The Expendables 4 with Robert Pattinson showing up in a smart car, and so does Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis.
Yeah, why not? I dig the look of this Batmobile. I like it. I like that it's looking like a classic muscle car. Yeah, I mean, we of course got the Tumbler. The Ben Affleck one is pretty close to that same Tumbler type of style. Yeah, even going back to the Burton and Clooney and Val Kilmer movies, they had their very own distinct Batmobiles. So yeah, this is definitely a different take on it and a more classic look for the Batmobile. I dig it. Especially if this movie is supposed to be taking place in the 80s or 90s from what I've been hearing. So it makes sense to have this type of vehicle in that. So.
Well, I guess it depends, because if you look at
now it makes sense. But.
Well, I mean, just the you're like 80s and 90s. I was like, but that is definitely a very modern, like Challenger-looking vehicle. And then you're gonna retro it. I'm like, that part doesn't make sense to me. But at this point right now, I'm still all in, because there hasn't been anything that he hasn't shown that's made me go, ooh. Mm-hmm. Ouch. No, everything's been looking spectacular. And the way he's been kind of releasing these little nuggets a little bit here and there has been fantastic.
For some reason, I thought this movie was going to be coming out this year with how much stuff has been coming out.
Yeah.
But I think DC does that quite often, though, with their stuff. They'll release it really early, like we're in the first week of production. Here's a look at Jared Leto's Joker.
Yeah, but it's the same. But, they need a little bit of a boost, if you will. Yeah. Plus, would you rather the studio or Matt Reeves give these little nuggets as opposed to like the paparazzi, blurry, crappy photos that are going to get leaked online?
Yeah,
stuff
I don't know
that?
how DC can't keep their stuff locked down like
Marvel?
like Disney does. Disney
Yeah.
has their stuff locked down.
It's like, yeah, you don't see anything unless they tell you.
Yeah. Next piece of news is Disney related, because of course every week has to have a Disney piece of news. This is that Hocus Pocus 2 is happening.
Yes.
For sure this time. Hairspray director Adam Shankman is set to direct Hocus Pocus 2 for Disney Plus. I don't know why that was a mouthful. Yeah.
You're looking forward to this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was bound to happen with how much people... This movie gets bigger and bigger every year. I mean, it was a bomb when it first came out.
It's one of those ones that has grown its cult following over the course of the last, 20-ish years? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It only makes sense that this movie was going to get a sequel.
Especially with all the retro kind of the bring back that they've been doing at Disney Plus.
Disney with 90s stuff. That's their big bread and butter right now.
We got, Home Alone. We've got...
Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's
some of their most watched stuff is those 90s animated series. Mm-hmm. So it only makes sense. It hasn't been confirmed that the 3 actresses that played the Sanderson sisters will be coming back, but they will be coming back.
They'll probably be coming back, and they have
Disney has a fat check says that they're going to be coming back.
But from what I remember, they've gone on record saying they're all interested.
All 3 want to do it. It only makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think within the next couple months, if not within the next month, we'll get confirmation that they're back.
Because they just confirmed the director. They haven't actually started production, right?
Not yet.
Not like your Mighty Ducks.
Not yet. Nope. So yeah, this and it only makes sense that the Hairspray director is taking this on. The first film had a musical director as well.
Yeah.
So this makes sense for it. Next piece of news that we unfortunately had to bring up, and we're bringing it back to the coronavirus. This episode's going to be very dated in the next 2 months. Yeah,
2 months, like 2 weeks.
Yeah, Bond 25, Bond: No Time to Die, has moved to a November release date away from its original the first weekend of April release date.
So we've got more time to not die.
Yeah, Bond is saving all his time to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I saw some people, complaining about this and whatnot. And, with as many problems as Bond has been having over the course of its production, honestly, with something like this, call me not shocked. But, it's one of those things that, like, MGM needs this. They cannot afford to release this in with markets not available to them, like the Chinese market and stuff like that. What other tent poles does MGM have? I don't think they have any.
Nothing really. Bond is their big.
Bond is their thing. So they had to move it. It's stuff like this. Like, I'm actually surprised that we haven't heard anything from Disney about moving the Mulan release date, to be honest, to that same effect, because they literally designed the movie for the Chinese market, and it's supposed to open in the next 3 weeks? 2 weeks?
Yeah, within 2 weeks. Yeah. I think Disney's waiting to feel how the rest of this goes out in the next week or so.
Yeah, but we've been talking about this crap for the last almost 3 weeks now already, and you're going to get it literally down to the wire and be like, no, sorry, we moved it. That just doesn't seem right.
I could see them waiting until that last week before Mulan comes out. Because with Disney movies, they don't get released and sent to theaters until like the day before, so like the Wednesdays before the release. So they got time to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I would not be surprised if Mulan gets moved, just like Bond did. My Spy, starring Dave Bautista, got moved as well from its original release date here in the next week or so.
Because people are going to go see that.
Yeah, that was. I would have just released the movie now. But yeah, Bond. It sucks that No Time to Die, of course, gets moved back, and this movie further gets pushed back away from its original release date, because I believe it was supposed to come out late last year already.
Yeah, exactly.
And it got pushed back because of Craig's injury, amongst other things.
At the rate we're going, it's going to start having the release schedule of New Mutants.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, but Bond, I would have liked to have seen it stay in this. But, I mean, Craig has had a history in the last while of having good November releases.
This is true.
Last year's Knives Out was proof of that. So, yeah, I mean, having a Bond movie around Thanksgiving makes sense to me.
Yeah,
around the holiday season.
That sounds, and we're going to be just getting off of the horror binge, so the people are going to want something a little bit different and whatnot, because by then we'll be a couple weeks into Halloween Kills, and just the typical horror movies that show up in like September, October, and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they've been really gearing up their marketing for this movie lately. Of course, with Craig on SNL.
Well, they also weren't expecting
releasing the song from Billie Eilish, the "No Time to Die" song. But yeah, they weren't expecting.
They weren't expecting a great, big, huge, flu.
Yeah, so yeah, it makes sense that they had to move to November, but. Yeah, so we will move our planned Bond discussion in a few weeks to a few months now.
Good, because it gives me time to watch some more Bond movies.
Yes.
Most of them.
We're going to have a big Bond discussion. I don't know what we're going to do yet. We'll figure it out. We'll get some Bond nerds on here for sure.
Yeah, we're going to need them.
Yeah, I like Bond. I would have to my blind spot in Bond is like
Pierce Brosnan.
No. I got all the Brosnans done. It is between Sean Connery and Brosnan that I just remember nothing.
Oh, geez.
I watched them as a kid.
There's like 3 Bonds in there too.
I know. Yeah, I watched them as a kid. Remember nothing. So yeah, that'll be my plan for the next few months to get all the Bonds rewatched again. So let's move on to our main topic then for the week. We're going to be talking comic book movies that are not DC or Marvel related. This is going to kind of round off our big comic book movie discussions that we've been having for the last year and a half that we've been doing this.
It's almost like we like comic book movies.
It's almost like that's the big thing in Hollywood right now. Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
It's only been like that for 20 years now?
Just about, give or take, yeah.
2001.
Yeah.
Spider-Man kind of broke the mold.
2002 was Spider-Man.
Okay, but still, by then we already had X-Men and Blade and whatnot. So
yeah, and we have a few from before then, even that we'll discuss as well. But yeah, when you think of comic book movies, you obviously think of your Batmans, your Supermans, your Spider-Mans, your Iron Mans. But there has been a lot of movies that are based on comic books that are not from the DC Marvel line that are very popular and have also grossed very big numbers domestically and worldwide, and
most of them.
Yeah, so we got a list of about a dozen that we want to talk about that we really love and enjoy and just want to have a discussion on. Brian, I'll kick it off to you. Which one of these catches your eye first and foremost for these comic book movies?
I mean, the one we have just right at the top of the list, Sin City. Robert Rodriguez, pretty much goes to the studio and says, I want to make this, and made a little bit of a test pilot production of what he wanted it to look like. He completely did this all in-house, the style and everything like that, because he wanted it to be so much like the Frank Miller comic books. I mean, there really wasn't a movie like this beforehand. I mean, it was just completely different, just the visuals and just the way that he constructed this movie. I mean, this is literally straight up a comic book, come to life.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to discuss with a lot of these, actually, that they're, when you think of a comic book movie, because now with the Marvel and DC movies, they're more of, it's an action movie first, comic book movie second. But this is straight up just a straight adaptation of Frank Miller's graphic novel.
And the use of color is in certain restraint and with certain aspects of what's going on in the film. Otherwise, it is completely black and white, which that's unheard of in terms of a comic book movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's straight up taking that style and adapting it to the big screen. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really, really applaud this movie. I mean, I've given Robert Rodriguez crap in the past, I know.
Yes.
But this is one of his best.
Yes.
And the fact that he is so adamant about making it a faithful adaptation, so much so that Frank Miller is credited as a co-director on this movie.
That he left the Directors Guild because the guild wasn't going to allow for that, and he's like, no, Frank Miller deserves the credit for this, and I'm going to give him the credit for it. I mean, heck, technically, if he wanted to, it could have been, Robert Rodriguez, co-director, Frank Miller, with special guest Quentin Tarantino. there's a lot of work and thought that went into this film. I mean, the fact that you even got Tarantino on there for one scene. I mean, you call in your buddy because you got a particular scene. You know how you want it to work. Get the guy that knows what he's doing to go make that specific scene.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said, there's nothing else like this.
No.
And I think that works to this film's advantage, and why it's still around today.
Yeah.
And why people still talk about Sin City is that it's just a straight up adaptation of that comic book.
And think of some of the people that he got in the roles that he did for this film. Like Elijah Wood is downright creepy, and Mickey Rourke is just over the top. Bruce Willis is probably about Bruce Willis-ish, as he normally is and whatnot. But yeah,
a standout to me is Mickey Rourke because we saw in a later comic book movie that he was in. He was phoning it in and just didn't give a shit, and he was there for the paycheck. Here, he's caring. He's delivering.
He knows exactly.
He knows what he's doing, and that's what. Yeah, that's what you said. They know what they're doing.
Yes,
and I think that's the biggest thing about this is that I'm like, yeah, how do you get people like Bruce Willis to care about this or Mickey Rourke? And Robert Rodriguez obviously did. And he must have had something for them to say, or just gave them the graphic novel and was like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Here's your storyboards.
Well, and that's one thing I have to give credit to Robert Rodriguez. I mean, if you love or hate any of his movies, whether you're talking the kids' movies like Spy Kids or he's a very passionate director about the projects that he's making to the point where he is able to secure some very amazing talent on any of these titles that he makes and whatnot, and this is no exception to that.
Yeah, this was a first time watch for me here prepping for this episode.
Really?
I had never watched Sin City before. Just one of those that just slipped through the cracks.
It is one of those ones where I think the sequel to this didn't quite hit as well because this was a one of its kind pretty much when it came out, and to follow this up was a little bit hard for him.
Yeah, this is where I would want someone with a little more comic book knowledge than us. Because Sin City 2 is what, A Dame to Kill For or something like that. Was Frank Miller, did he write that before the film was coming out, or he kind of was doing it at the same time?
I'd have to double check it. For all I know, it's another book that Robert Rodriguez adapted.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I want to say he was kind of doing it at the same time type of thing. It was kind of doing it because of the success of the first Sin City movie. But yeah, we'll look it up here. Let's go in a different direction. I'll pick the next one here that we should talk about. Let's just do one of my favorites, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And
now, which version of the Turtles? Because we have multiple versions of the Turtles.
We'll do a full Turtles episode at some point. But for right now, let's stick with that first one, 1990. I still think it's the best one. That Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film from the 90s. That's the one that is still my favorite. It's still, I mean, in many ways, it's still the most faithful adaptation of the original Turtles comic books. Out of every other movie that's come out, it's the most faithful.
You're not wrong,
but never going to get that Ninja Turtles. So if you don't know about the original Ninja Turtles comic books, all black and white, very graphic,
very violent.
No cowabunga, no dudes, no pizza eating, none of that turtle stuff. That came in the cartoon from the 80s.
The cartoon that was made to sell the toys.
Yes. But yeah, that original Turtles run, black and white, unfortunately, we're never going to see that adapted into film. No. I wish we would. I wish Nickelodeon would take a chance, at least do a straight-to-DVD release. Animated or something like that.
You started your sentence with Nickelodeon, so guess what's not going to happen?
Yeah. I think it would sell pretty well, but
Nickelodeon would have to sell the rights. I don't think even Nickelodeon underneath because that's all like the Paramount and freaking Viacom, MTV. I don't think they would even remotely consider doing that underneath like MTV Films if MTV Films was even still a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's a dream project that I just know it'll never happen.
That is a dream that will never happen.
It's a dream that'll never happen.
It will never happen.
The closest thing I guess we'll get is this 1990s Ninja Turtle movie. Yeah, I love this movie. This is one I've grown up watching and loving forever. It introduces this is my introduction to the Ninja Turtles because I never watched the cartoon before watching the movie first.
Really?
Yeah.
I suppose you're also like 12.
Yeah. Well, when this came out, I was not even born. But yeah, there was no Ninja Turtles cartoon on when I was watching cartoons.
No, because at best it would have been on some sort of channel
Rerun.
of syndication. Exactly.
Yeah. But this is my introduction to the Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I love that it is also very much a blend between the cartoon and the original graphic novel of the Ninja Turtles. Because there is some darker elements. Raph gets the shit kicked out of him at one point and nearly dies.
Or the fact that, again, somebody who was around during the original toys and the comic or the cartoon series and everything like that, to hear, like, at the very beginning of the film, to hear Raphael yell, damn, damn, damn. I'm like, oh my.
He said a swear.
I was also, like, really, really young and didn't know what it was based off, all that stuff. I'm like, they're swearing. And no. What are the turtles doing?
Yeah, I still think that this one holds up really well today, too. The
animatronics, yes.
Yeah, the sequels, on the other hand, not so much. I still have a very soft spot in my heart for the second one, Secret of the Ooze.
Let's also acknowledge that Donatello is played by Corey Feldman in terms of the voice.
Yeah, Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman.
He still needed a job in 1990.
Still needs a job now.
Still needs a job now. That's true. Yeah, this is like I said. I love that it blends the fun Ninja Turtles with a little bit of the darker angle on them. I like that Shredder's team that he builds of the now I'm blank. Is it
the Foot Clan?
I always think of the hand,
Clan.
but that's the Daredevil, obviously.
The Foot Clan.
Yeah, I love that he's taking these teenagers from broken homes to build his Foot Clan in New York.
Let's just remember.
And they're stealing like VCRs and DVD players. And
let's just remember who the head of that.
Sam Rockwell.
For
all of like 30 seconds.
It doesn't matter. It counts.
Yeah. Watching this, like growing up, I'm like, I kind of want to be part of their team. They have a cool hangout.
Right.
It's like a big warehouse, and they have like arcade and pool, and everybody's smoking.
Everybody's got freaking the skateboards and skate ramps.
It looks cool. It looks like a fun place to hang out. It's like, yeah, the Ninja Turtles should just joined up with them.
They would have had so much fun, dude.
Yeah, and I like that. Again, there's a darker take. Shredder takes on Splinter, and Splinter like gets the shit kicked out of him, and he's kidnapped, and yeah, it's fun. This movie's still fun.
It is
and
still fun.
Casey Jones is great.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, even when. Okay, so maybe the most recent ones are a little bit kind of off kilter, but they're trying and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, even for the sake of the sequels and whatnot, I enjoyed the first two sequels. The Secret of the Ooze. I mean, come on, we got Ninja Rap out of that. We got Vanilla Ice in there.
Super Shredder.
We got Super Shredder. The third one, they go through time and they go to ancient Japan, kind of thing. They're just fun movies. Like, I mean, at least even when they came out with TMNT and it was the animated film, because at that point, kids are not going to go see animatronic turtles and whatnot. So for it to go into the CGI world, it was expected to me, but the fact that they referenced those original three movies and whatnot, and so essentially the TMNT animated film, is part of that same universe. So
yeah, I've never watched the CGI one.
Yeah, because
I heard it's really good.
Because when you get to the very end, they have I don't remember even what it is or who the bad guy was, but they go and kind of put this thing kind of like almost like a trophy, and there's like Shredder's helmet, and basically references to all three of the previous films.
I'm going to leave off with one thing for Ninja Turtles. Casey Jones is a murderer. He killed Shredder via garbage truck. So he murdered a man.
We don't talk about
Police should be after Casey Jones. I like to believe my parents named me after him. They didn't, but I like to believe that.
In my fantasy world, I'm named after Casey Jones.
Yeah, in my fantasy, my dad's a secret Ninja Turtles fan. He's like, yes, Casey Jones, that's his name.
In my world, it's like, we like Monty Python, so we're going to name you Brian.
After Brian. I am not the Messiah. I'm really not.
I am not.
All right. What do you got for the next one you want to talk about?
How about The Crow? Since we're going to stay with the dark and gritty kind of thing.
90s as well.
The 90s, yes. The very unfortunate passing early of Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
And on top of it, too, the unfortunate thing is there's actually two people in this film that didn't make it much further in life before they passed away because her name is escaping me and whatnot. But the Yellow Ranger from Power Rangers is in this, and I don't think it was too much longer after she made this that she passed away too, because hers was a car accident?
Yeah,
I think so.
But this is one of those movies that when people talk about like cursed movies and stuff, this is one that comes up quite
the
often.
whole
This and Twilight Zone and Poltergeist are all those.
Yep. And I think I did reference this, the director of and again, why the names are escaping me right now, but John Wick was one of the stunt guys for The Crow. So, at least, some other things have come upon this here. Iggy Pop looking just straight up Iggy Pop as per usual. I mean, you just throw Iggy Pop into a movie, you just want an old man to look weird and creepy and scrawny and whatnot. Just throw Iggy Pop in there.
Yeah, this is one. So when I first got into comic book movies was right around 2011, 2012. And so I'm like, yep, I need to go watch every single comic book movie before the Avengers comes out, just to have everything done. And this is one I watched then, and I haven't watched it since. So it's been almost 10 years since I watched The Crow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I need to rewatch this again because I loved it the first time I watched it. And even like the behind the scenes stuff and the unfortunate passing of Brandon Lee, but that in a weird way that almost adds this mystical element to this movie.
Yes,
because very much like the character in the movie, where the character is shot and killed and gets resurrected to enact vengeance on the people that murdered him and his bride. That's kind of what happens in the production of this movie, where he dies halfway through production, and via this movie, he is resurrected and brought back into the public conscious and forever cements his legacy. And
they had to get very creative with some of that stuff in terms of, some of the scenes that he had not shot yet, where he needed them. They were using between body doubles and, basically stitching his face into certain scenes and whatnot just to make
Luckily, it's a very dark movie, so you can do a lot of that.
Exactly. There was a lot that they were able to get away with because of the style of the movie. Like, if it would have been the Avengers 20 years ago, it wouldn't have worked.
It would have been Carrie Fisher and Rise of Skywalker.
Ouch.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the Crow. Yeah, they thought about scrapping this movie. It was also with because they were only about halfway through production.
Yeah.
And they thought about scrapping the movie.
They're like, no, they want to do honor for Brandon Lee.
And of course, this is one of the most iconic comic book roles of all time. Has inspired countless things in just pop culture. Period. We've gotten. The makeup of Heath Ledger, his Joker very much looks like the makeup of Brandon Lee's The Crow. Of course, in the wrestling world, Sting copied his gimmick and look from The Crow. So
I mean, this is probably also one of the early on soundtracks for me. Again, I have a thing for movie soundtracks and the music that it delivers to me, and it was one of those first full on rock soundtracks where you're pulling in some of these artists. You're like, oh, I never heard of this, or I'm buying it because of this artist or whatnot. To really say, I mean, it has a very well developed soundtrack on top of it as well. One of the things that I find fascinating is that anytime it comes up about a sequel to The Crow or remaking the sequel or everything, because all the different City of Angels and
they've had three they're not direct sequels, but 3 movies with the Crow name.
Well, no, so that's just it. And the people well, you can't make this because it doesn't have Brandon Lee. The premise of how the Crow works, it is multiple people. So in fact, it would make perfect sense. And it's just that you get some people that kind of get on that wavelength of Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, and et cetera, et cetera. No person can play that role again. With the Crow, that's what it is.
Yeah, and in part of that conversation, I'm like, look at Bond. No one cares. Everybody's asking, well, who's the next Bond? Who's going to be after that?
But that's also 25. How many? 25 years. 25 films, and how many years later?
Yeah, but I think I have no problem recasting people. And this is, I think there's something else behind the production of that's going on, because at this point we're almost 26 years removed from this movie, and it's like Sure, just do a remake. Why not? Like no
Well,
one.
they even talked
no one's gonna
about
argue it.
a remake with Jason Momoa. You know what the first thing I thought was? I would love to see a dark Jason Momoa. You look at him in just everyday life, you're like, he's just a happy dude, and he's big, and I'm like, no, I want to see gritty, beat the crap out of someone, Jason Momoa as the
Jason
Crow.
Momoa. Yeah.
Jason Momoa.
For some reason, I don't think we mentioned this even in our 1994 episode last week, did we?
I don't think so.
Jeez,
Wow.
gotta add another one to the list.
We failed that one, didn't
Let's
we?
move on to another 1994
I think we
movie.
might have brought it up in passing.
My 1994 movie that we're going to talk about next
Uh-oh.
is The Mask
Oh, yeah.
with Jim Carrey. Yeah, this is, again, part of Jim Carrey's big 1994, based on a very different type of comic book than the product of the film that we got. But yeah, I really love The Mask. I think it still holds up very well. The CGI is, of course, a little goofy, but it works because it's a live-action Looney Tune movie.
Yeah, exactly. The CGI is a little weird, but it's in the style of what the character is.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies because it's, of course, we get crazy Jim Carrey when he's wearing the mask and doing all the weird facial expressions. Of course, that I don't know how you do it today without doing CGI, besides having Jim Carrey come back. But then you also get very subdued Jim Carrey in this movie, too, because he's just a mild-mannered dude without the mask.
Right.
And then we get Cameron Diaz in this movie.
Heroes would be like, and then we get really bad sequels.
Oh, well, just one bad sequel. We don't need to talk about that one. I saw that one.
Yes,
I saw that in the theater. Oof.
Why?
Because
you were a child and didn't know better.
Yeah, it was. I was literally at my cousin's house for a week, and we're like, well, we need something to do. Let's go watch a movie in the theater. So we went and watched Son of the Mask, and we're both like, ugh. And I'm like 9 years old at that point, and I'm still, ugh.
It's funny as you say that as an adult. Oh yeah, 9 years old. I realized this is a bad movie. No, you probably were a 9-year-old laughing your butt off, thinking that's all funny. This is an amazing movie.
No, I hated it because I loved the Jim Carrey The Mask, and I'm like, all this. There's no Jim Carrey. What's even going on? There's a weird baby crawling on the ceiling. I don't know. But yeah,
you sound like you're talking about Train Spotting for a second there.
A very similar scary baby, yes. But Jim Carrey's The Mask is a lot of fun. I would like to see Jim Carrey return to this role at some point. Maybe even go in the original comic book adaptation route, where it's a little bit darker take on this very cynical take on The Mask.
Maybe. I mean, I could certainly see him doing it. Maybe if he's starting to kind of get back into the big screen and whatnot. I don't know if he would be the type to revisit. I say that I was about to say whether or not he revisit the character one on. Then I was like, didn't he talk about revisiting Ace Ventura here recently?
Yeah.
And I still don't know anything about that either.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. I just had to pull this up because I think it's my favorite scene in the movie. Cuban Pete.
Oh my
is the
God.
best scene in the movie. It's so much fun. Jim Carrey of course, he's peak Jim Carrey in 1994.
He's peak Jim Carrey. You mean he was straight up then, and then just it's been all downhill since?
It's been all downhill since. He'll never come back. No, I mean, he's had a very great career.
Very much so.
But yeah, this was peak like Jim Carrey smoking. The catchphrase is Jim Carrey right
Yeah.
here. Yeah, the Cuban Pete song is still like just my favorite scene.
The year of '94 definitely screams like Jim Carrey in Living
Color. On top of the world.
Well, like in Living Color, Jim Carrey, where he has the opportunity to make all of these just absurd characters. I mean, even when like his Fire Marshal Bill, I think it is.
Yeah.
That I didn't see this until I saw completely off tangent because it's not has anything to do with
when
it.
When he did it on SNL.
No.
Oh.
When in the end of Liar Liar, when they're at the airport, there's a scene where you can see where he's dressed up as Fire Marshal Bill in the background, and I'm like, how did I miss that after all these years?
Liar Liar. Liar Liar also has the best outtake scenes at the end.
Oh, yes,
It's
they
just
do.
as funny as the movie. So.
Yes, Liar Liar is one of it. Another great film. Granted, it doesn't qualify right now.
No, not right now. We'll do a Jim Carrey episode at some point. I can't wait.
Oh my God,
Oh, there's so much good Jim Carrey to talk about.
there's some bad stuff too, but there is a lot
There's a
more.
lot of-
There's a lot more good than bad.
And we can definitely talk about the dramatic Jim Carrey stuff because I love that just as much as kooky, crazy Jim Carrey.
Hell yes.
All right, Jim Carrey episodes. Let's just do it right now. I don't care.
No.
Okay.
Later.
All
Put it
right.
on the schedule.
Brian, what do you want to talk about next?
Let's talk about. I'm gonna go with The Kingsman because number one, I did not know this was a comic book thing until it was start being made. And this is my first introduction to Taron Egerton. Because I think he did sing before this, but that was
after.
Was it after? I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember if this was my introduction to. I'll look it up while you.
But this is just one of those things. Yeah, I didn't know who Taron Egerton was. I know Eddie and the Eagle came afterwards as well. I didn't know it was a comic book or anything like that. And it was, the way I looked at it was just that it is a nice modern day kind of spin on James Bond. It's the gadgets, the espionage, all that stuff, whatever. But then you're kind of putting into this mid-20s role of this kid and whatnot, and you're just like, this is so much fun. And frankly, the fight scene in the church with Colin Firth, you just look at that man, you're like, I did not know that man can move like that. Like that, whoever was hired to choreograph that fight sequence should have gotten an award.
Yeah, that is the sequence of the movie. It's so good. It's one of my favorite scenes of the decade period. It's probably one of my favorite scenes ever.
Yes.
It's so much fun. Yeah, you didn't know he had that in him.
Right.
And yeah, that's the scene everybody talks about after watching the movie, is the church scene. But Taron Egerton, he's great in this movie. This is definitely the first time I ever saw him in the movie.
Yes.
In films.
This is also the first one for me for Sofia Boutella. Because she plays kind of the sidekick, or not sidekick, but the henchman for Sam Jackson with her,
sword legs
and whatnot.
And Samuel Jackson in this movie, he's something else.
But
the
the
use of the lisp is an inspired choice. I don't hate it. It's fun.
But I think that's kind of what he was going for,
It's totally a Samuel Jackson input on the character too.
Exactly. The way his mannerism of dress, everything like that, I legit think that they just basically said, "Hey, here's what we need out of you, Sam Jackson. You get to do the rest, and you can't." This just screams like, I get to have fun, and they're gonna pay me to do it.
Yeah, definitely a Matthew Vaughn style of film too. I think his style lends itself perfectly to comic book movies.
Yes, it does.
Another one we'll talk about later that he also directed. But yeah, he did X-Men First Class before this, and when he was kind of booted off that for He Who Shall Not Be Named, then he hopped on the Kingsman train, and it's been his ever since then as well. That's been his franchise and kind of his baby he's been cradling since.
Yeah, nobody, I don't think, until he says, I'm done making these movies, nobody else will be doing a Kingsman movie. And that, obviously, because
I'm all right with that.
We've got the Kingsman still coming. We know there's still a third Kingsman movie coming with Taron Egerton. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's jump to then the next Matthew Vaughn movie I was mentioning, Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass.
This is one of my favorite comic book movies ever, period.
Yeah.
Because it's such a deconstruction of a comic book character and how this kid, basically, he just wants to be like a comic book hero, and he does and gets the shit kicked out of him.
Yes,
it's pretty great. Nicolas Cage is fantastic as Big Daddy in this movie.
The entire cast is fantastic in this. But it's
Chloe Grace Moretz is great as Hit Girl, and a great child performance in this movie as well.
Well, and the part that's like, there's all these just like little itty bitty Easter eggs that I've learned over the years of this film that just I find fascinating. And, like for instance, like you referenced, like Nick Cage is Big Daddy. When he gets into Big Daddy mode, he's
all Adam West.
He's all Adam West. And I remember seeing a thing where the editor was coming back at Matt Vaughn and be like, dude, you need to tell him to stop because it was making editing damn near impossible. And Matt Vaughn's response is, nope, I like it. You work around it. Which obviously the film still came out beautifully and whatnot. But yeah, Nick Cage is a comic book nerd. Everybody knows that and whatnot. And to have him go full on Adam West for Big Daddy was fantastic.
Easily Nicolas Cage's best comic book character that he's ever played.
Yes.
not hard to beat for him. Yeah, he's fantastic in this movie. Like people give Nicolas Cage crap because he's a meme now.
Yes.
But he pulls out these great performances every couple of years.
Oh,
and
yes,
you're still
he
like,
does.
Nicolas Cage is a great actor.
And look at the fact that we have both Quicksilvers in this film.
That we do. Christopher Mintz-Plasse is pretty good in this movie. He's kind of still just playing McLovin.
Yes.
But as a future supervillain. Mark Strong is a great villain in this
Mark
movie.
Strong is fantastic
So
in this.
He could play a villain in his sleep.
Yes.
But he's still great in this movie. Of course, my favorite scene from Kick-Ass is when they light Big Daddy on fire.
Yep.
And Nicolas Cage is just screaming at the top of his lungs. Oh, it's so great. It's perfect Nicolas Cage.
It is fantastic.
It's so fun. Kick-Ass 2, I've only seen the one time in theaters. I didn't love it as much as I did the first one. I kind of just wished at that point that they just made a Hit Girl movie.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of split between Hit Girl and Kick-Ass as the leads in that, and then you had Jim Carrey not giving a shit because Jim Carrey was woke Jim Carrey, like the beginning of woke Jim Carrey then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole weird thing.
That was a thing.
But yeah, I still think it's fun. I need to go back and revisit that one again. Matthew Vaughn was in Kingsman mode at that time, so he did not come back to do Kick-Ass 2.
Which definitely...
There's still some Vaughn flavor in there.
What I was going to say is maybe that's one of the reasons why I never went back to go see it. Because still to this day, I have not seen the sequel to Kick-Ass.
Oh. Yeah, it's fine. It's nothing to go home about like the first
like
Kick-Ass.
the first one, right.
All right, what do we got next for this list?
Well,
I know one that would segment pretty easily into Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Well, technically any of them you could because they're all comic book movies.
But Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a very similar tone to Kick-Ass and Kingsman.
The very much Edgar Wright driven wonderfulness that is not a Nick Frost Simon Pegg film.
This is my favorite Edgar Wright movie. Period.
Nothing
comes close and I love all his other movies.
Well,
but
that's
nothing
just it. I was
comes
going to
close
say there's just for me personally, all of them are pretty on par with each other.
They're all pretty great.
This is one of those movies where you look at Michael Cera and like every so often he just comes up with this perfect like for instance like Juno, for example. This is a prime example. Like you don't want to like Michael Cera because you're like, really, how? But then just all of a sudden these films come up and you're like, I can't picture anybody else but him in this role.
I think Michael Cera, unfortunately he's a very limited actor.
Yes.
There's only certain characters that he can play. And when he's put in these roles,
he crushes it.
And fits it perfectly. Yes, he does. It's Scott Pilgrim, it's Juno, Arrested Development. He fits in those perfectly. And
his bit part in This Is the End.
Where's my effing cell phone? That's embarrassing. Yeah, he's one of my favorite. But coked out Michael Cera is one of my favorite characters in that.
Yes.
But yeah, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It made our top 20 movies of the decade. I applauded when Andy played it.
Yes.
Because I wasn't planning on playing it, but I was hoping someone did. I'm glad he did. I love Edgar Wright's editing style, and I think this is
even just
one of the most present of that.
The directing and then the use of the CGI or the computer graphics for the sake of the comic book / video game aspect of it is brilliant.
Yeah, I love all the evil X's are so much fun. Who's your favorite evil X?
Oh. Ooh. Part of me is it's going a little bit between no.
I have a tie between two former superheroes.
That's exactly what mine is. Mine's between Chris Evans and Brandon Routh. And I almost have to lean towards Brandon Routh because of the vegan police showing up.
That's where I was going with it.
Being played by Thomas Jane and Clifton Collins Jr. You're just like that little like 10-second cameo just encapsulates the whole the vegan power. You're like, that is hilarious.
We also this is a big cast in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, we mentioned Brandon Routh and Chris Evans and Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the lead in this movie.
Is it Kieran and Rory? Which Culkin?
I think it's Rory. I could be wrong. I think it's Rory Culkin. Brie Larson's in this movie. Aubrey Plaza. Anna Kendrick.
This is one oh no, this is post Twilight Anna Kendrick.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie. What's his face? The guy that plays the villain. I can never think of his name.
Schwartzman, Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah.
And it's Kieran Culkin.
Oh, it's Kieran. Dang, it's Ron Culkin. Knew it wasn't Macaulay. Yeah, this movie's a lot of fun.
Is it embarrassing that we're like trying to confirm which Culkin
Which
it is?
Culkin is it? That should be a game.
It's all.
Same with the Baldwins.
That's what I was going to say.
Baldwin is it?
We'll have a game of, is it a Baldwin or a Culkin movie, and then you have to figure out which one is which.
Yeah. Unlike the Baldwins where they're all just not Alec, I think the other two Culkins are good actors.
They're both great. Well, granted, I also like Macaulay Culkin, but he also knows exactly what he is.
Yeah, he's at a different point in his career now.
Yes.
For what he can play.
Exactly.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's fantastic. I've never read the book. I want to. This is the one where I'm like, that's the one I want to go back and read. Is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
I think you shouldn't have too much of a problem with that one, because if I remember correctly,
It's very short.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not an ongoing series.
No. Yeah. What do we got next? I want to jump to one that I watched for this.
Keep asking me questions and then just keep going.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, the one I watched in preparation for this, because it kept popping up on best comic book movies that aren't DC and Marvel.
Yeah, this one's all you, man, because I didn't even know this was a thing until we started talking about our best of panel last year, or for comic book movies for SuperCon last year, and I'm like, so you're telling me that this man has been in more than one comic book movie, and who would have ever thought that Paul Giamatti would be that name?
Yes, that is Paul Giamatti in American Splendor from 2003. This is such a unique film. Again, we talked about it with Sin City, where it's the comic book style.
Okay.
This is the comic book style. It is a mixture of a traditional narrative with Paul Giamatti playing comic book creator Harvey Pecker, and it also mixes documentary style because they're interviewing the real Harvey in this movie as well.
Really?
And then there is also comic book illustrations put in throughout the movie as well. So it's a mixture of traditional narrative with documentary with comic book. It's a very, very unique film.
I'm confused.
Oh, I was too. It shows the real Harvey, sitting in a chair and talking directly to the camera. I'm like, what's going on? Is this a documentary now too? And it mixes very well. There's even a moment in the film where Giamatti finishes a scene, and they yell cut, and you see him walk over to the craft table and kind of interacts with the real Harvey because they're both there on set.
What the shit?
Yeah, it's a really interesting movie, but American Splendor is literally about this guy, Harvey Pecker's life. That's all his comic books ever were about. He's not a superhero or anything like that. It
was just all about him.
It's his mundane life, his boring life of working. He worked at a post office or some file. He was filing some things for the government or something. But yeah, it's about his normal, mundane, everyday life, and that was he made a best-selling comic book out of it because he was a huge comic book fan. And Giamatti is fantastic in this movie. I gotta pull up the actress's name that plays his wife, but she's fantastic in the movie too. And yeah, I love that there is a blend of traditional narrative with documentary style. It's so unique for the movie. Even throughout the movie, they're talking about. He and his wife are writing a comic book about the making of the movie.
What the hell?
Yeah, so the DVD version that I have of American Splendor comes with that comic book. So I'm gonna dive into that after we're done here.
I'm just listening to all this, and I'm just like, how does this even come together?
It shouldn't, right? From the way I'm describing
the way
it, right?
you're describing it makes me not want to. Well, okay, let me rephrase. Makes me want to because I'm intrigued, but makes me not want to because I'm going to go watch a train wreck.
No, it works seamlessly especially for what it's going for, because throughout the film, he even Harvey knows, he's like, this is a movie about my life, and hopefully it works out, and hopefully everything is pretty much accurate to what's going on in my life, and yeah, it just works seamlessly.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was kind of the traditional narrative documentary style. But after watching it, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad they did it that way because it feels more. It even feels more like a comic book movie.
I was gonna say it makes it different. It gives it a reason to set it apart from what would be your traditional comic book movie.
And it's very much in the vein of that original comic book that it's based on because it's just about a dude's life.
Right.
And having the dude in the movie as himself only makes sense if it's going to be an adaptation of that comic book that he's in.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's very...
I highly recommend American Splendor.
So for 2003, what you're saying is it's very meta.
It is, well, yeah, it is pretty meta, and yeah,
it's very self-aware.
It is very. He is very self-aware in the movie as well. There's great stuff in this movie because when he was doing the original American Splendor run, he was on Letterman quite often to promote it, but he hated Letterman. And he would go off on him a few times because this guy was a pretty depressed man and kind of hated the world.
Yeah.
And Letterman is not that.
No.
And they kind of bickered and bantered all the time. And yeah, finally he just goes off on Letterman during one of these, and it's pretty great.
Did they show that in the film?
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm
highly recommend American Splendor.
I don't know how to respond.
Yeah. All right, we just got a few more left on this list. Yeah, Brian, what do you want to go to next? Pick one more out of this list to do a bit longer discussion on. I know I got mine.
I'm going to go 300.
All right.
Just because, well, yeah. Anyway.
Good choice.
Good choice.
Still one of Zack Snyder's best.
Well, this was up until Zack Snyder went into the DC universe, which I still have a problem with, but that's a whole different conversation.
We had that conversation.
We've had that conversation a few times.
The internet's had that conversation.
Well, that's just like Zack Snyder's perfect for like a Batman kind of thing because he's a dark type of director, not Superman because Superman's not dark. But besides, but his darkness and his idea, his style, and the green screen effect and CGI that he used for the atmosphere that was 300 absolutely set it apart from any sort of like Spartan, any of the old, Troy Gladiator type style movies.
Sword and Sandals type of movie.
Exactly. That gives everybody with the, Gerard Butler with his like 12-pack, 16-pack, abs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just beautiful, fascinating, gorgeous movie to watch. Everybody does an amazing job in their respective...
Michael Fassbender's in this movie, even.
I forgot about that until we brought that up one day. I'm like, what?
Yes. This movie, much like Sin City, it adapts the comic book very well. And even with, I think the Zack Snyder slow-mo style works very well. This is kind of where it was developed and now parodied many times and brought up in the conversation.
Couple times.
Yeah, I don't think it holds up as well as it did when it first came out, where like this was the big thing, 300. Now it's a little dude broy.
Well, not only
looking at it,
but as much as I praise the idea of how the look is, I don't think it holds up in terms of the look like Sin City does. Mm-hmm. There's just something about it that kind of feels a little aged as we progress, longer and longer that this movie is out. Yeah, there is some things that I just don't think hold up very well, but overall, it's definitely a unique take for a comic book movie. Yes, it introduces us to the Zack Snyder slow-mo that has become a parody at this point, but then it was a novel thing for him to do and use. It worked well for the movie, and for movies that get parodied in parody movies or in pop culture in general, I think there is something to say about it, especially for like, because this was what, 07? Maybe earlier? No. Later? No, Am I thinking wrong? I don't know. 06.
06, yeah. I mean, this is this is before the big comic book boom. This is before we even get Dark Knight and Iron Man that kick off Marvel and DC for them. So this was a big movie to have in the general conscious for people to be parroting and talking about. I would say even more than Sin City. Sin City is still brought up today more than 300 is, but back during
We did have Batman Begins before this.
yeah, and we've had other Batman,
Yeah.
but Batman Begins didn't blow up like 300 did, or even The Dark Knight later.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think it was a pretty big thing for its time, and most of it holds up yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think because for as much as I'm going to give crap, where the look and the style of it, sometimes I don't think ages well or hasn't aged well. I think that if it wasn't for that, it would have aged worse.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think having the Zack Snyder touch while also adapting that comic book, the graphic novel, worked very well for this movie.
Yes.
All right, last one here. Let's talk about it.
Ooh, please tell me it's a man in a mask.
It is a man in the mask, and he never takes off that mask.
Yes.
Dredd. Carl Urban's Dredd. This
not
movie,
not the Stallone version.
not the Stallone Rob Schneider version.
We could technically talk about both.
No, we don't. We mentioned it. That's all that matters. But Dredd, Carl Urban, this movie rules.
Lena Headey is fantastic as the
she's
villain
great
in
in this
this.
movie.
Yes. And I do love the fact that, kind of sort of going back to the Stallone version, is that Carl Urban's like, yes, I'm going to be Dredd. Dredd doesn't take off his mask. You never see Carl Urban's face outside of basically below his nose.
He was asked to take it off. They're like, well, you need to take off your mask at least once in this movie, or we need promo pics of you without it. No. I like that in an actor. That's one of my problems with many modern comic book movies, especially like Avengers.
He understood
take
the
their
character.
damn masks off.
He
so
understood the
much.
character.
Yeah, and this movie's fantastic. I've only watched it the one time in theaters, but in 3D. The way to watch it.
I didn't do that. I unfortunately...
It's so good in 3D.
I made the mistake of not seeing Dredd in the theaters, and it wasn't until I got it on Blu-ray that I had the opportunity, and I do feel... that was a bad idea.
Yeah, I am not a fan of 3D movies. I've only seen probably 2 in the theater where I'm like, yeah, that works for 3D. This is one of them. Mad Max was the other one.
I was gonna say your selection of films is because you're afraid that you're gonna have a bad 3D movie, which does happen. I've been in one. Saw would be one of those. You just have to learn to pick and choose your 3D.
I've never seen a horror movie in 3D. Like in the theater.
I legit don't want to.
I do.
The purpose, the reason why I don't want to is, again, Saw 3D, when the final chapter came out, it was straight up for the gimmick. The whole, like, throw shit at the screen kind of stuff.
I want to see a gimmick. I've never seen a gimmicky 3D movie.
It was so stupid. It was one of the things that actually, as a fan of the franchise, it's something that actually pissed me off the most.
But the 3D works so well in Dredd.
Well,
because I remember me and my buddies, we didn't get a whole lot of movies when I lived in Iowa. Especially, we did not get Dredd in the theater.
You lived in Iowa.
We lived in Iowa. So we made a day, whenever we came up to Sioux Falls to watch a movie, we made a day out of it, and we'd always watch 2 in the theater.
Yeah.
And we went and watched End of Watch first. Great movie. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Michael Pena.
And then we followed it up with Dredd right after. It's a great double feature.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and Dredd we saw in 3D. The 3D works fantastic.
Straight for atmosphere.
Great atmosphere in the movie. Carl Urban, his voice in the film, and his charisma, it shines through that just the helmet he wears that entire time. And I do love the boss battle style of this movie, where he's building his way up the building to the final boss of the.
It's very reminiscent of what I think of when you think of like the Raid.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it works very well. There's a reason people are still signing petitions and asking Carl Urban about a sequel. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Not based on this.
The box office.
Budget $50 million worldwide, 41.
Yeah, it's definitely developed a cult following though.
Yes, you are correct. Maybe
I think the sequel would do. I think it'd do better. I think maybe we're a little far removed from this movie that I just don't think it'll ever happen.
You say that, and we got Tron Legacy how many years after Tron? And Tron was an okay release?
What did the Tron Legacy make?
A lot more than Tron? Well, let's see. You got me curious now.
Yeah, sequels that far out don't make a whole lot.
Okay.
Tron Legacy might be the exception.
Tron Legacy is the exception. Okay, so at least according to Box Office Mojo, Tron, nothing like getting off topic here, but I love this
We're
here.
good.
Tron, 1982, budget 17 million. It doesn't have anything for international, so I don't know if it was or was not. They just don't, maybe they don't have numbers from back then. Worldwide, total domestic, $33 million. And then we get into Legacy, where you always heard people bitching, crying about Legacy being a horrible movie or something like that, right? Budget, $170 million, but brought in $400 million. So by the numbers, it technically did do better.
Well, yeah, it also had a $172 million budget. Jeez.
But no, that's what I'm saying though.
It doubled its production.
Right, that's what I'm saying. 17 million for 33 million or 40 whatever it is, and then 170 million for 400. I still would love to see another Tron movie. I still want to see Jeff Bridges come back to do that again.
I watched Tron probably right around when it came out. I didn't mind it. I remember nothing about it now, but I didn't mind it when I watched it.
I think
I was also a very different movie watcher then.
Well, I was going to say this. I think that you probably don't remember much of it, having probably not gone. You went into Legacy not really knowing Tron. So
I had never seen Tron.
So that makes everything.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, Dredd.
Sorry.
Back
My bad.
to Dredd.
Dredd.
I would love to see a sequel to this.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think
It
it
won't
will ever happen.
It will never happen.
Yeah, I definitely think it is in the conversation for one of the best comic book movies ever. It is definitely up there for best non-DC Marvel comic book movie.
And the fact that they didn't hold back and they was like, we are going to make
it's a hard R.
It's a hard R. It's 2012. People are still not liking the idea of
who directed this.
This is Pete Travis.
What has he done since then?
Let's see here. Director. Not much.
Not a whole lot.
Mostly a couple TV movies. City of Tiny Lights. Never heard of it. Some Fearless TV miniseries. He filmed. Is he doing something for Badlands? Okay.
Bloodlands.
Oh, Bloodlands. You're right.
Yeah, but that's unfortunately what happens with these directors. They'll come out with something that later develops as a cult hit, but if it doesn't make its money right away, you're stuck in director's jail for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, he made Vantage Point and whatever this Endgame is, and so over the course of like 6 years, he made 3 movies.
Yeah, this is the one where out of all of these that have not had a sequel, this is the one I want a sequel of the most.
Yes, I would concur.
All right. Should we round out this conversation then? Round it up?
What are we rounding it out with?
Well, we round it out with Dredd. It's one of the best.
It is one of the best.
There's one I'll mention because we'll talk about it more next week.
Okay.
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer.
I know you haven't seen it yet.
I know.
So I'll give you time to.
I'm a little behind on my Bong Joon-ho movies.
Yeah. So let's jump into that then, because Snowpiercer is based off a graphic novel, and then next week we are going to be talking about Bong Joon-ho movies. We'll save our conversation for then. Leave it a little tease for next week.
Hey, talk about a nice little segue for once.
Yeah, we actually have a segue from. We actually had a segue from last week, too, because we talked about The Crow and The Mask.
Whoa!
We're not going to have any segues next week after that.
After that, we're going to be like, oh, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, so anyway, next week, like I said, we're talking about Bong Joon-ho movies. He's big in the conversation right now because of the huge Academy Award wins for Parasite at the last year's Academy Awards.
That little indie film?
Well, it is a little indie film that blew up. And yeah, we're going to be talking about Bong Joon-ho movies, talk about his filmography, throw out some recommendations from his earlier work, and yeah, we'll talk Snowpiercer then. So look forward to that next week.
Next week on the Backlot 605.
Backlot 605, and we got to present our little killer countdown that we just did our latest episode on. You can find that right now on all our podcast services. Me and co-host Blake, we discussed scary scenes in a non-horror movie.
What?
Brian, what's a scary scene from a movie that is not horror?
Well, just off the top of my head.
Off the top of your head.
Well, I don't really think it's scary, but I understand why some people think it's scary, and it is definitely a very dark scene in this movie. Is the tunnel scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder version. Just because, back then that was a very psychedelic thing to, go about, and
In a kids movie.
And Gene Wilder, there are definitely aspects of that movie where he gets dark, and you're like, how is this a kids movie?
We talk about that.
I kind of figured.
Yeah, pretty. You can probably guess where that one is, Brian.
Oh, is that number one?
That's the number one. So I'll spoil it.
Spoiler alert!
Because it's not that. It's just a fun episode where we talk about fun, scary scenes from non-horror movies. Yeah, that's our number one.
You guys were like, what are we going to do this week? I don't know what we're going to do. Oh, we need to put something out this week.
Yeah, we had a couple of things mixed up, so we're like, this is one we can do right away. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, so, okay, I see where you're going with this. Because you got, okay, I know why. Okay.
Yes. So that was Scary Scenes in a Non-Horror Movie. You can check that out on the latest episode of the Killer Countdown. It was a lot of fun to do. It was a lot of fun.
I imagine this was a nice change of pace.
Yeah, we talked about movies we would never otherwise talk about on the Killer Countdown.
Right.
Like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I don't know, depending on who you ask, that could be a horror film.
It's a little bit of a horror movie.
It's a little bit of a horror movie.
All right.
Hot take, it's more of a horror movie than Midsommar?
That is a very hot take, and that's what it is. That's what it is. All right. You can check out our film friends, Andy the Fat Dude, on Fat Dude Digs Flicks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as on iTunes for Andy the Fat Dude. Go check out his show. Andy will be on an upcoming episode of ours very soon as well. Check out our buddy Corey Jacobson on Somewhat Random Movie Collection on Instagram. See all his great movie-related posts and his fun shenanigans on there. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, and YouTube for this to find this podcast. And then find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, simply at Backlot605. And then join us on the South Dakota Film Community Group on Facebook.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, where can the lovely listeners find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs? You can try and get people to stalk me?
On the interwebs,
on
yes.
The interwebs? Mainly Instagram and letterboxed under LP Freak.
Yeah.
Freak.
All right, you can find me on Instagram at Casey_the_horror_guy, where I'm reviewing every horror movie that I watch. I recently did a review of Midsommar, so you can check it out there.
There you go.
Yeah. And then, as we mentioned, next week's show will be Bong Joon-ho movies.
We are not making weed references next week.
You think so. We're going to take a hit from the bong and talk Bong Joon-ho movies. I'm excited for this, and this one's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of movies. I've only seen about half of his filmography so far. So
you're doing better than me right now.
Yeah, I'm one in.
I got Parasite.
You got the big one.
I got the important one right now.
Yeah, so now you got to go back.
I do. You do it in reverse order.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be next week's episode. We will be joined by Blake, who is much more well versed in the Bong Joon-ho filmography than we are.
Yes.
So we're going to be looking to him for a little more.
We're going to lean
expertise.
on Blake.
Yeah, we're going to lean on him because we're not strong.
We're not strong.
Yes, that is the song. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this show. Please leave a comment with some of your favorite non-DC or Marvel comic book movies. Let us know some of your favorites on whatever podcast service you're listening on, or drop a comment on the Facebook post for this. And yeah, until next time, for Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Kelderman, and we'll see ya on the backlot of South Dakota.